Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz. I'm coming to you from Honolulu, Hawaii, from eTurbo News and Livestream.travel. Today we're here to celebrate or to continue to celebrate the launch of World Tourism Network. World Tourism Network is a new initiative. It's resulted out of the rebuilding.travel discussion we had going on since March of this year. And currently we count a little bit more than 1,000 members in 124 countries. So we're growing fast. We have a lot of initiatives going, and anyone who's not yet a member of World Tourism Network, please join us. You can just go to wtn.travel and click on join. If you are a member or if you're not a member and you wanted to see our upcoming events for the launch, we still have a number of events coming all the way till the end of the year. Just go to wtn.travel and click on the blue banner for launch events or on the red link in the menu bar, and you will go and be able to sign up for all upcoming events and see what it is. Today, we'll be going all the way to Ecuador in South America. And before we do this, I wanted to introduce my partner and co-host, Dr. Peter Tarlow. He's joining us from Texas. And I'll let him speak and then introduce Marcel Perkins from Latin Trails, who will take it from there. Good morning, Peter.
Good afternoon from Texas. As we say here, howdy. It's a cool day. It's not the snow that New York will be getting, but it is a cool day here. I'm really excited for this session because one, I've known Marcel for a long time. But two, Ecuador is a really exciting country. And I've had the pleasure of being to many parts of Ecuador. I've worked with the Ministry of Tourism and worked with the US Department of Justice in Ecuador, have spoken to American compatriots who live in the city of Cuenca, which is kind of a small American colony within Ecuador. And if you haven't been there, Ecuador is one of South America's smaller countries, but it's got everything. It's got jungles and mountains and oceans and great cities and you name it. So I'm sure today's going to be a really exciting day. I'm looking forward to hearing what Marcel has to say. And we'll have a dialogue. The only thing I want to ask people is when you enter into the conversation, please say your name and where you're from, because that helps people a lot kind of locate you and know where you are. So I'm going to try to be as quiet as possible and let Marcel turn the program over to Marcel. And again, I think you're going to really enjoy today's program. If you haven't been to Ecuador, it's a lot more than just a country through which the equator goes through. It's a country that has everything. So Marcel, the floor is yours.
So it's time to check another adventure off the bucket list. We're in the Galapagos Islands, in a little town called Puerto Ayora, where we're going to meet up with our ship for an 8-day cruise around the Western Islands. But first, we load up on a few souvenirs and check out some local seafood.
Oh my gosh! He's huge!
Before we make our way down to the dock and get this party started.
So we're ready to begin this adventure. Heading down the pier here, we're going to get on some Zodiacs and then make our way out to the Seaman Journey and get going.
So we pile into the Zodiacs with our fellow passengers and head out onto the water, where we board our ship, the Seaman Journey, and leave Puerto Ayora and civilization behind. And as we quickly find out, every morning in the Galapagos begins the same way, with an overwhelming sense of excitement.
So we're getting ready to go on our first excursion off the boat. We're gonna go look for tortoises and what else? Iguana?
Whatever's out there.
Yeah. So many things. There's no telling what we're gonna see today.
We're gonna try to find the baby marine iguanas and also the sharks.
Sharks?
Sharks.
All right.
And penguins.
Days in the the islands are filled with all kinds of incredible adventure. And a lot of that adventure just so happens to take place underwater. The snorkeling in these waters is legendary, and it doesn't take long to find out why. A swim here can bring you up close to rays, turtles, yes, penguins if you're lucky, and it's a safe bet you'll meet the playful and curious Galapagos sea lion.
That was incredible! Incredible! Saw so many amazing things. Oh,
And that's not even the half of it. We also make a number of shore landings around the islands, where we go for short walks and come face to face with some of the planet's most incredible wildlife. It's everything we've always heard the Galapagos would be, and so much more.
And at the end of each day, as the sun sets and casts a golden hue over this otherworldly landscape, a chance to rest, relax, and admire the majesty of it all. It's absolutely true what they say about this place. Every day here is full of magic and wonder.
And I think my favorite thing so far is watching the baby sea lions. There are some that are 8 and 10 days old. I feel like I keep saying it's a spectacular place, but it's an unbelievable paradise. It's amazing.
Reach a point where you're lost for any more words to describe what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. And we've said that to ourselves and among each other at the end of every single day. And this day's been no exception. This is just extraordinary. It's just, it's hard to believe a place like this is real. And even now, looking back, we're still not convinced it wasn't all just a dream.
Peter, Jurgen, thank you very much. What a privilege to be in front of such an important audience for the travel industry. Thank you for having me. I'm going live from Ecuador, and as you know, Ecuador is well, it's in South America. It's in the northern part of it. At the moment, as of right now, Ecuador is open for travelers from all over the world. All we require is a negative COVID PCR test, and you are free to roam the country, including the Galapagos Islands. There's certain details to those protocols, which I will go over. Just a small anecdote. Right now, as we were starting, we have a full power outage here in Ecuador. So I had to switch over to the cell phone, which I hope you don't mind. This is going to be more of an audio talk, which I will describe everything in detail. So, but we'll go onwards with that. Well, as I was saying, Ecuador is open again for travel. It was back in March. It was one of the first countries in South America to be really hit hard by COVID. We didn't take it seriously. Well, nobody did at that moment because nobody knew what to expect. So it was we hit the news in a bad way. But a few weeks after that, I think it was Ecuador has been one of the countries that takes it more seriously than anyone in general, I'd say. If you go through the streets of any of the towns in Ecuador, even in the smallest rural areas, you'll find people wearing a mask. So it's this discipline and this type of structure that has been developed at these times that has allowed Ecuador to open again. At the moment, I was saying, to come into the country, you need a negative PCR test. This has to be taken. It's a nasal test. It should be taken within 10 days of traveling to Ecuador. And once you arrive, you have to present the results and you can visit Ecuador normally. Now, the only thing you'll find that is a little bit different is the wearing of masks. Everywhere, people using alcohol gel and washing the hands frequently. We do take this seriously, so that's what it is. But now, what can you do and what can you see in Ecuador? What we've Ecuador has never been a country for the crowds. Well, at the moment, it is less crowded than before. So if you go to a museum, you wouldn't have to wait in a line before, and much less now. So there is a very natural social distancing. Uh, my my home city in Ecuador is Quito. This is the capital city. It's in the Andes at 2,800 meters. What is open in Quito is well, in general, everything. But what can you do from Quito? If you come from the United States or from Europe or anywhere you come from, you would arrive. This is going to be probably your entry to the country. Well, being in the Andes at 2,800 meters, the first day you're going to take it slowly. What do we have nearby is the Avenue of the Volcanoes, the most famous of them being the Cotopaxi volcano. This is a snow-capped peak. It's an active volcano, reaching almost 6,000 meters. And you can actually drive up to the snow line almost about 1 hour walking away, which looks like a couple hundred meters, but it's not to be taken so lightly. Then another attraction nearby is the Otavalo market. This is a trade market that is characteristic of the indigenous people, the Otavaleños. And it's one of the largest trade markets in South America. Quito, the city itself, is a colonial city, meaning Spanish colony, blended with the beauty of and the unique art from the indigenous people from the Andes. And this eclectic blend has created, just in the city alone, about 48 churches you can visit with Baroque, colonial, and fusion art, both indigenous and Spanish. So it's like an Andalusian city, but with a touch of the Andes all the way throughout. That's our home city. How tourism is developing now? Well, we have slow numbers still, but travelers are arriving. Once again, as I mentioned, a negative PCR test. What we do recommend for travelers is to bring health insurance. You're going to still need it to go onwards to the Galapagos eventually. Not just health insurance, but you need to just be ready to be wearing a mask. So that's that part about Quito. Now in Quito, what the trend now is, there's many small hotels, what we call boutique hotels. A few of them have 10 rooms, up to 28 rooms in the downtown area. And at these hotels, you can enjoy unique experiences by interacting with the locals. And one of the possibilities for travel agents and tour operators now is to actually charter out one of these small hotels. So you could do a full buyout, turn it into a villa for your small group, or if you have two families traveling together, you would be able to buy out one of these hotels. One of them is Ila Experience Hotel. That's ilaexperiencehotel.com. I invite you to check it out. This is a 10-room property in a neighborhood called San Marcos. San Marcos is very special because it's one of the only residential neighborhoods, the only actually residential neighborhood within the historic downtown of Quito. Quito, if you look at the importance of the historic downtown, it was the first city that was named by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, together with Cracovia, the first two cities in the world. This is due to the way the city is preserved. It's the best preserved colonial downtown area. And this uniqueness in architecture blended in with the uniqueness in art. Within our neighborhood, we support about 20 different families with the experiences that they offer. For example, hat weaving. Ecuador is home to the straw hats. We're making paila ice cream. Paila ice cream is ice cream that is, it's a sherbet handmade within a bronze cauldron that's spun with fresh fruit. Then we have colonial art restoration. We have folkloric dances from the Andes, and several activities that can be taken place for example, at this Ila Experience Hotel, which is a beautiful property. But not only Ila Experience Hotel, you have Casa Gangotena, which is a more famous hotel as well, but just both at the same level, but Ila being a little bit more personalized in service. Then nearby you have Mashpi Lodge, which is in the city. It was actually part of the city of Quito, and it's part of the Choco rainforest. Now, all of the South American countries, most of them have a good access to the Amazon rainforest. Ecuador has the easiest access. It's actually from the city of Quito, you could drive into the Amazon in 3.5 hours. Now, apart from the Amazon, you also have the Choco, and that is unique to Ecuador. because it goes along the coast all the way from through Colombia up to Panama. But you have both the Choco rainforest and the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador, just to choose from. Now, in the Amazon, as I mentioned, you could drive in. You don't need a second flight to reach the Ecuadorian Amazon. But as you drive through, this is not just a transport drive where you're just driving to get somewhere. You're actually going through one of the most beautiful sceneries, which is descending from the high Andes into the Amazon rainforest. Along the way, there's possibilities for whitewater rafting and adventure activities, but also for bird watching because you're going through cloud forest. And here we have gardens that have been set up with feeders, and you have dozens of hummingbirds fluttering around. So this is a good pit stop, for hot chocolate or for some coffee along the way. And then you're downward towards the Amazon. Along the way, you also have hot springs and other stops that you can enjoy getting into the Amazon by land from Quito. Now, in the Amazon rainforests, you are able to meet in person people that have lived in the forest, that have lived only from the forest and have been isolated from civilization for quite a long time. Nowadays, they're blending in with what we would call Occidental civilization, but you can see that how they strive and how they keep their traditions still. You're not going to find them, walking around naked. They'll be wearing jeans and T-shirts, but they still have their traditions. They live in their traditional homes in the huts that are made out of caña guadua and have straw roofs. But also, you get to see their ancestral traditions like making chicha. This is a fermented corn beer, or eating the chontacuro worms. These are the worms from the palm heart. Again, we have that, and then we have the nature reserves. You have primary rainforest trails. This is rainforest that has never been cut, and it's a great area for bird watching. You do get to spot quite a few primates, and of course, those who are very lucky, once in every 10 years, get to spot a jaguar or something bigger. So that's a little bit part of this part of Ecuador, from the Andes into the Amazon. To return to the Andes, you can actually come by another route, which is not back to Quito directly, but up to the central part of the Andes of Ecuador. And here we have a small town called Baños. Baños is a resort town in the mountains, in the cloud forest, and it's perched by an active volcano. Although the volcano is in constant eruption, it never has affected Baños in a bad way. And it's protected behind a couple other mountains, and it's a great place to look at the volcano erupting. So this is a really scenic view, a scenic route. There's some really beautiful waterfalls, and there's canopy chains that you can actually take. You have zip lines, you have bicycle trails, and several adventure activities there. Then from Baños up into the Andes again, it's just another 2 hours, and you can cover the whole avenue of the volcanoes. As I mentioned, there's the Cotopaxi volcano, but Ecuador has another 5 volcanoes just on that same road that can be spotted from the roadside. You have Ilinizas, you have the mountain Chimborazo, you have Sincholagua, and several others. Now, you have Tunguragua as well, and these can be spotted from the roadside as you drive through the Avenue of Volcanoes, meaning that you're going south from Quito, the capital, to the smaller villages along the Andes. If we go south enough, we'll reach the city of Cuenca. Cuenca is also another UNESCO heritage city. It is considered by many the most beautiful city in Ecuador. It only has 500,000 inhabitants. It's a colonial city, and it's very walkable. At the moment, we have about 8,000 U.S. expats living in Cuenca. That's where they have retired and moved to live in. It's a beautiful city to live in, very walkable, not expensive, and with beautiful architecture, friendly people, delicious food. That's another thing. Ecuador at the moment, food is up and coming. A lot of people talk about the food in Peru and in other areas that is famous, that are famous. Well, Ecuador has been, let's say, it has the similar potential, but it has been promoted a little bit less. So if we look into that, the ingredients from the Amazon, the Andes, and the coast can be blended, and can be discovered. Not being too exotic, just seasonings and different flavors. Now, of course, Cuenca is a beautiful city. Around Cuenca, you have it's a colonial city as well. The style is also Andalusian, but it has its unique traditions. One of the biggest traditions in Cuenca is the weaving of straw hats. Around the world, these hats are known, or were known first, as Panama hats because they were used to build the Panama Canal. At the moment, a lot of people know and have been educated that they're not from Panama. They're woven handmade in Ecuador. One of these hats can go anywhere from $20 to $25,000, depending on the technique that is used to weave them. So it is actually a national treasure, and it is a cultural heritage recognized now by UNESCO as well. Now, a lot of people don't know much about Ecuador's coastline. Well, at the moment, I am located by the coast of Ecuador. We have over 1,000 miles of pristine beaches with no big resorts, but small beach lodges. Very comfortable, very nice. Some of them at a 5-star level, others at a 4-star level, with unique cuisine, but with beaches that are not crowded. At the moment, I'm in a town called San Clemente. Actually, just to give an example, this is a town with 10,000 people. There hasn't been one case of COVID in San Clemente. So this is the kind of life that has been living in Ecuador. And still people do wear the mask anyways, because there is visitors from other towns. And the idea is to, yes, we're respectful with each other, but also we're respecting this this virus that has attacked us. Now that there is a vaccine, we're hoping travelers do come back, because the country does need those resources from tourism. Now, the crown jewel of Ecuador is the Galapagos Islands. To get to the Galapagos Islands, these beautiful islands are famous because of the visit Charles Darwin did about 200 years ago, a little bit more. And of course, he put them on the map with his theory of evolution, the best marketer we've ever had. At the moment, the Galapagos are isolated completely from Ecuador. You fly, it's a 2.5-hour flight, starting in Quito and stopping at the coastal town of Guayaquil, which is a bustling port, one of the most important ones off the coast of South America. Now, the Galapagos at the moment have very few cases of COVID. To get to the Galapagos Islands, you need a second COVID test, or you need to actually plan the Galapagos at the first leg of your trip. So if you needed your COVID test 10 days before traveling to Ecuador, you need it 96 hours before traveling to the Galapagos Islands. So it has to be taken within 96 hours. If you put the Galapagos at the beginning of your trip, you're able to actually go through Ecuador and into the Galapagos with just one COVID test. Otherwise, you can have a second COVID test taken in mainland Ecuador. It's not difficult. Most laboratories will deliver it in 24 hours, and they'll take it at the comfort of your hotel. And no interruptions to your trip anyway. Now, it's a 2.5-hour flight. You also need health insurance to go onwards to the Galapagos Islands. That is a requisite. And you need a safe conduct. A safe conduct is it's a certificate, meaning that you have formal tourism services hired. At the moment, Galapagos doesn't want anybody going to improvise or wait for a last-minute deal, at the islands to book a cruise or something like that. They have to come with everything pre-booked. Those are the requisites. Once you're going to reach the islands, people will notice that there is less crowds. Well, it has never been crowded. If you put it into perspective, the city of Venice in Italy has more tourists in one day than what Galapagos has had in 10 years. So if that's that gives you an idea, it's a non-crowded location. And if we pair that up with Ecuador, which is not crowded, you have the perfect travel bubble where you will not be in any crowded areas. You can travel with your family, with a group of friends, and enjoy these locations. Now, in the Galapagos Islands, how do you travel around the islands? The best way is on a small live-aboard expedition yacht. I don't call it a cruise anymore because cruises are mistaken with these large boats, 3,000 people or more. The yachts in Galapagos carry 16 people. The biggest boat in Galapagos carries 100. All these boats have private bathrooms, private cabins, indoor and outdoor dining areas, a lot of space on board. And you're disembarking. Once you board these boats, you're not in contact with civilization for 4, 5, 6, or 8 days. You're visiting unique wildlife areas and nature trails where you're going to encounter animals like sea lions, giant tortoises, blue-footed boobies, frigate birds, flightless cormorants. You'll be snorkeling with white-tip reef sharks, sea turtles, manta rays, and playful sea lions that will be swimming around you. That's the possibilities with the Galapagos Islands. Now, the best way being by cruise, but of course, there are travelers that, even if you put a gun to their head, they're not going to sleep on board a small boat just because they don't like it, or they are afraid of being seasick. So there is options for that. There are 4 islands in the Galapagos that are inhabited, where there's towns, small towns, and there is hotel-based tourism as well, where you can combine a hotel stay with day tours to the different national park locations that are nearby the island that you've selected as a base. For these day trips, you just have to take into account what you travel one way, you have to travel back the same day. On the other hand, with a liveaboard cruise, what you travel that day gets you farther from civilization, and you can go farther out the next day because you're sleeping on board the boat. That's the only difference. But the wildlife does not know that you're on a boat or at a hotel. They don't tell the difference. So it's there for everyone. It's always beautiful. Ecuador and Galapagos are a 365-day-a-year destination. We don't have big weather changes because we're at the equator line. So that's a little bit of the state of travel now with Ecuador. What has become very popular, and I think is the way to travel now, is taking advantage of the lesser crowds and the availability that is on the boats is to charter a boat. You can charter a 16-passenger yacht if you're two families traveling together or a group of friends. It will be actually comparable to booking 4 or 5 cabins when you have 8 cabins on board the boat. You book a couple more cabins and you have the boat to yourselves. You can set up the schedule. You can arrange the food to be at a higher level or at a different level or special meals. You can still do that anyways because the boats in Galapagos cater very well to dietary restrictions as long as travelers let their tour operator, their travel agent know at least 30 days in advance. So this is my advocacy for Ecuador and Galapagos. It's time to visit now. Galapagos is hurting because the population that lives on the islands is 80% reliant on tourism only. Fishing is very small there. Actually, well, for international large fishing fleets like what was in the news a few months back, or the Chinese fishing fleet plundering the Galapagos waters, well, that is not the local fishing fleet. The local fishing fleet is very small, non-existent, and it can't even cover the economic needs of the local population. So if you put that into perspective, tourism needs to come back to help conservation in the Galapagos as well. So that's my invitation. I would like to know, Peter, Jürgen, if there's any questions about Ecuador and Galapagos that you'd like me to answer.
No, and anyone else can, of course, jump in. It's always open for questions. Just raise your hand and we give you the microphone. It sounds like a really, really exciting place to visit. I've been to Ecuador, but I've never been to the Galapagos. So now I think that's going to be on my bucket list now, listening to you.
We need to do our next program from the Galapagos.
Yes. How many people live in the Galapagos?
In total, there's about 32,000 people living in Galapagos.
So it's very small.
It is small, yes, absolutely. The biggest town is Puerto Ayora. You have about 24,000 people there, between 24 and 26. Then the second island with inhabitants is San Cristobal with about 5,000, 6,000. Then you have Isabela Island that has about 2,000. And you have Floriana Island, which has 100 inhabitants.
Wow.
So, Marcel, maybe you could tell people a little bit about how easy or problems if you don't speak Spanish and if you never been to South America before, maybe things that people should prepare a little bit for. Just, it's not quite the same. I've been to Ecuador many times and it's a great country and I agree with everything you said, but it's not Europe or the United States. It has its own unique character. And therefore, the better prepared people are, the more they're going to enjoy their time there.
Absolutely. It is really nice to brush up on a language before you travel. Learning a few phrases in Spanish like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Necesito una cerveza. Of course, that is very important.
Cerveza is important. Yes, I can.
Yes, absolutely.
For those who speak Spanish, I need a beer.
Well, no, but in general, Ecuadorians are very kind people. Within the tourism industry and at most hotels, you'll find people speaking English. But as you said, it's not Europe and it's not the US. You will encounter that at small stores and outside of, the main cities, people do not speak English, but they speak the international smile language. Yes. So you actually, and now what we've been practicing in Ecuador is smiling with the eyes because usually now everybody's covered. So we're learning to smile with our eyes. We're really trying to show that we're friendly people and that we're welcoming for people from abroad. But also, what you will encounter is that people are a bit shy, so they keep their distance. Although once they get to know you, the way we used to say hello was with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. We can't do that anymore. So now it's We still do an elbow rub. That's the etiquette now, an elbow rub, and everybody's fine with that. But it does feel actually weird to have that distance. But of course, if you're a foreigner, if you're somebody from away, there will be some distance at the beginning, and people will expect you to say, wherever you go is whoever goes in is going to say hello. So you say buenos dias, buenas tardes, good morning, good afternoon. It's a polite country, and people, one thing is, if you're in Ecuador and you forgot, let's say they offered you the dessert, and you said no the first time, they're going to offer it to you 3 times because they expect you to accept at the third. So an anecdote is, my grandma from Ecuador, because I actually I was lucky enough to have a grandmother in Ecuador and a grandmother in the U.S. And when she went to visit us, because there was a time I lived in the U.S., when she went to visit us, she actually was saying no all the time the first time because she was expecting everybody to offer her the dessert a second time. And when they didn't offer it a second time, she was disappointed because she thought, she was missing out on it. So that's how Ecuadorians are. It's a little bit shy. They expect you to ask something, maybe a couple of times, because out of politeness, they will say no the first time. It's not that they're not interested. It's just that, they're shy.
And
So that's a little bit of the vibe in Ecuador.
No, and I can attest the food is excellent. I mean, I know last time I was there, I stayed at the JW Marriott Hotel, and there's a
Yes.
lot of restaurants in that area you can walk to, and I was never disappointed. So it's definitely something I think Ecuador should support is food tourism and gourmet tourism. It's something what would fit right in. You still use the US dollar as a currency, right?
Absolutely. We have the US dollar as a currency. It's been our currency for 20 years now. So you don't have to worry about, changing any currency or anything, or doing any math or anything while you're on vacation. It's just on one side, it makes things easy.
It absolutely makes life easier. One of the things you didn't mention, but you might want to talk about a little bit, both the cities, both Guayaquil and Quito, and of course the countryside, are truly wonderful for people who want to take photographic safaris. And there's so many places to take interesting pictures. Certainly the houses, the beautiful, colorful houses in Guayaquil are just spectacular for people who are not used to it. And Quito, you kind of briefly spoke about the churches, but if you don't understand the churches of Quito, they're fantastic. And you don't have to be a Christian. I'm not a Catholic, but it doesn't matter. You are just taken aback by the beauty. Many of them are made of gold, and they're really once in a lifetime experiences. So maybe just speak just a little bit about that a little bit more, because it's not something, it really puts Europe to shame. The churches of Quito are, if you think you've seen churches in Europe, you've seen nothing in comparison to Quito.
Absolutely, Peter. No, and yes, I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. As you said, a lot of the churches are covered in gold. So, for example, what happened when there was the arrival of the Catholic Church in Ecuador, and to appreciate this, as you said, you don't have to be following one religion or another. It's just really art, because they tried to make a replica, let's say, of Notre Dame in Quito. You have the basilica, and this was actually at the end of 1890s. They started building it, and the basilica itself, it was actually made out of volcanic rock, and the architect decided he didn't want to make a replica of Notre Dame. He was actually French, so he was going to make something a little bit smaller. He didn't. But the creativity of the locals is that they, instead of putting gargoyles, demons as gargoyles, they put tortoises from the Galapagos, jaguars from the Amazon, monkeys as gargoyles at the church. So you have an eclectic form of art. It's a blend of what's local, of what was actually the influence from Europe. Or, for example, one of the more older churches, like let's say San Francisco, the altar is covered in gold leaf. You have, it's the entire altar. It's covered in gold leaf, and it's covering the wood that was hand carved. And a lot of the art is very, when I say eclectic, I mean it's a blend, because at that time they wanted to represent the nativity, and they had to, let's say, paint a camel. The artist never had seen a camel, so he painted a llama instead. And you have this
Close.
Yeah, and it's actually from the same family. But he, through his imagination, the artist actually painted a llama, and instead of just putting everything flat like it would be in the times in the location where the nativity would originally be, they painted a snow-capped mountain in the back, and you can actually see that with smoke coming out like a volcanic eruption. Which at that time didn't exist. So you have this blend of art with local traditions, the technique from Europe, but old Europe, but also this blend. And all this was put into the churches because this was the center of society at that time. So the churches actually, if you want to see them as anything right now, is, if you don't have any religious incline, is towards seeing the art that's within there. These are treasures. Each one of them has a different background from a different set of priests, that because some priests came from Italy, others from Spain, others from France, and they had their religious orders, and each had their artistic background with them as well. So for example, La Compañía Church, this is perhaps the most important Baroque church in South America, and it's the one that's covered entirely in gold, and it's actually a replica of it Vesu in Rome, but with the facade outside is volcanic rock, but on the inside actually you have everything, the same facade, the replica inside is covered in gold. So it is just out of this world in that sense. But if you look in with a local and you look around what happened in the house in front of it, actually the house in front of the of La Compañía Church belonged to an Arab family. So they weren't too inclined towards the Catholic Church, and they made statues of angels aiming their genitals towards the church. So if you look on both sides, you see something different. And it actually is comical, it's unique, it's artistic, but it really is something that you won't find anywhere else. And these are things that or the indigenous people at that time, their revenge with the conquistadores, or when they were being conquered, as a colony, would actually be painting the queen or the king of Spain carrying stuff on their back as a beast of burden. That was their way of revenge, through art. So you'll find these small details if you go through these churches, and each corner has a different touch to it. So it's not just about the churches, but also visiting Quito is not about just the churches. You actually have live experiences, meeting people that are making, ice cream or chocolate, handmade chocolate, making your own truffles from not just the bean to the bar, but from the pod itself, and roasting it and learning to make chocolate. Now Ecuador has some of the best chocolate in the world. It has always had the best cocoa, but we didn't have the proper recipes, I would say. But now our people have gone abroad, immigration and all that, have studied. And now when they make chocolate, we've earned gold awards at all the chocolate festivals for having the best dark chocolate in the world. So these are just small details of what you'll find in a city like Quito. Not just, the churches, but actually going through the old colonial town, you find these locations where you also have a guitar shop where Paco de Lucia, the famous flamenco artist, would have his guitars handmade. And you still have the artist in making those guitars and his family, and they'll show. And if you're inclined to, join in and jam with them, they will take out the guitars and will play with you.
Wow. And I can hear the passion when you talk about Ecuador, and it's wonderful. And I think this reflects also from what I know, because you're a tour operator. You run a company in Ecuador by the name of Latin Trails, and I know you have been around from the very beginning. When we started back in 1999, I think shortly thereafter I already heard of Latin Trail. So you must be well established. Your tourists, you have a toll-free number in the US, I realize. So your tourists or your guests are mostly from North America, or tell us a little bit about maybe the company you have and yourself to learn a little bit more what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I was born in the US. My mother's Ecuadorian. So we started and I started traveling to Ecuador as a baby. But we moved here when I was 16 years old in search of a little bit more peace and quiet at that time. And I went crazy going around the country, falling in love with every corner. And I decided, that I wanted to share this with other people because there's such beautiful locations, nature, culture, in terms of food as well. So that's how we set up Latin Trails. And what we do is we curate unique experiences and do everything on a custom basis, because I feel Ecuador is not a country you should trample around in large groups, but go in small groups as a couple, as a family, or as a group of friends. Keep it small, 20 people at most, not more than that, but also in small groups of 4 or 5 with a private guide on a private transport and go and actually doing your own thing. That's what we do at Latin Trails. We offer this possibility to creating custom itineraries as a custom travel planner for travelers that want to come to Ecuador. We work mainly with tour operators and travel agents from around the world. So a lot of our clients do come from the U.S. We are very well versed in United States standards, but also with European standards. We have partnerships with companies from all over the globe that, and we are their local ground handler. So what we do is, as a DMC, they tell us, look, our travelers want to actually experience weaving and handcrafting, and we'll take them to and have them meet the artists that do that. Or if they want to meet a personality, if we have a group of people that want to meet the mayor of a city because of the importance of that city to them, or their sister cities, we can arrange those things. But in general, we'll do is we'll set up transportation, hotel reservations, find them, meal venues that are unique, pair them up with the proper guide that understands what they want, and then book them their services all together, and we'll supervise it because we have a 24/7 concierge department that looks after the trip of our guests. So we're your local representative and helping in every sense of the way, from the beginning of the trip to the end, with allowing everything to go seamlessly, and you have a carefree vacation. That's the focus as a tour operator, what we do. Now, in that process, we have built a few properties. One of them is Il Experience Hotel in the downtown area of Quito that I mentioned. The other one is Hakuna Matata Amazon Lodge in the Amazon, 3.5 hours from Quito. And in the Galapagos Islands, we have 2 small yachts, liverboards, for 16 guests each. One of them is the Galapagos Sea Star Journey, and the other one is the Galapagos Seaman Journey. These are both first class and luxury class boats, meaning that you have private balconies in your cabin, private bathrooms, indoor and outdoor dining areas. But the main focus is on the wildlife. As I mentioned, the wildlife does not know which boat you're on. So they're going to be the same for everyone.
Right.
In that sense.
Now, when you mentioned you get, I guess, as a DMC, you have tour operators from all over the world booking you. So with the current trend of COVID, what are the trends in the world? Where are people still traveling? I mean, I cannot see that the US market is too busy with outbound, but I may be mistaken. I know someone who just returned from Turkey, and he said there's so many American tourists in Turkey, he couldn't believe it. So how's the trend in Ecuador?
Well, actually, the first market to have recovered right now, well, not recovered because it's still very, very slow,
Recovering.
but that is making a comeback, is the U.S.
Really?
And of course, we started. Well, I think the whole world started out this way, is with local tourism. Us going around Ecuador and seeing parts of Ecuador we hadn't seen before to support tourism in those areas. Then we've had some regional tourism from our neighboring countries, from Peru, Colombia, Brazil. And then the U.S. is starting to flow in. Now we've had travelers from Europe as well, but that they've had to actually go out of their way to get down here. And once they've gotten down here, they've just loved every minute of it because of the freedom and the uniqueness. And but for them, it's still a little bit difficult to travel to Ecuador. But from the U.S., there hasn't been any problems because we have direct flights from Miami, from Fort Lauderdale, from New York. We have direct flights from Houston as well, and we have good connections. So these are, or through, from the U.S. with a short stop in Panama and then onwards to Ecuador with Copa. We have quite a few airlines: American Airlines, Delta. Delta is actually the only airline that's not flying right now. Sorry about that. But we have United, we have JetBlue, Spirit, and there's quite a few other. Avianca, LATAM. These are regional airlines, but are flying into Ecuador. And we're getting travelers coming in slowly, as I said. But for example, our Christmas departures on our boats in Galapagos are completely full, Christmas and New Year's.
Wow.
So it's not that people can't travel. They're a little bit slow on picking up again. But we see that our season's going to be starting, not, I wouldn't say full blast, but we're going to have a constant flow of tourists. It seems from March onwards, not before that. But at the moment, we have sporadic groups. We have guests right now at our hotel, mainly, as I said, from North America, from US, not from Canada just yet. But that's a little bit of the state of where travelers are coming from. Now, what I can tell you is travelers from Asia and from Australia, none of them are traveling at the moment at all.
Right.
But
And
you're
from
also
the
quite
from
far
the
away.
US,
The U.S. is much closer.
Of
The-
course.
And I think people are really desirous to get back to travel. Many of us feel cooped up in houses, cooped up in one quarantine after another. The word of the year is lockdown, unfortunately, and I think this is Ecuador can call itself the country where you break out. You're not locked down. So yeah, it's I think that there's much to offer, and tell us a little bit about health precautions, because that will be something that people will be worried about. What happens if you do get sick in Ecuador? How are you guys handling people's health situation?
Okay, well, health precautions, I'm going to say that you have to be very cautious anywhere around the world.
Of course.
You have the same amount of risk of catching COVID at home or in Ecuador.
Yes.
Because you're not bringing anything that we don't have, and you're not going to find something here that you don't have in your countries. So that's one part. I mean, it's just general in that sense. Now, there is hospitals in Ecuador. We are considered maybe a third world country, I would say, but we're in progress. I mean, we do have hospitals that are accredited and that are accepted from insurance companies, from around the world. If somebody gets sick in Ecuador, they have the hospitals that they would send them to instead of flying them back to the U.S. or flying them to another area in the region. They would actually fly them to these hospitals that are in Ecuador. So there are hospital beds. They're not completely full. As I said, the population is being very strict about this. Everybody's wearing a mask. So the hospital infrastructure is not overridden. It was at the very beginning of the pandemic, but even because of that, actually, they built new clinics. They changed things around, and they got prepared for a bigger wave, but we didn't get a second wave. And why we're not going to get a second wave has to do with the weather, because everybody here can go out all the time. But during the winter, in the northern hemisphere, everybody has to be locked in and is going to stay indoors. And that's where the second wave is going to be coming in. Here in Ecuador, we don't have that issue. Although we would like the rest of the world to have that same blessing, not having to exist a second wave. But that is the thing right now, and it's nothing. Hospitals are up. The medical care is as normal. They have all the equipment to take care of the tests. But as we all know, there is no treatment, specific treatment for COVID. So basically, it will be the same treatment you would get as in a U.S. hospital as in an Ecuadorian hospital, probably with less waiting in line and with a much smaller bill.
Yeah.
and you do need to have a test, right, before you
don't
arrive.
like being. The nice thing about Ecuador is you don't like being in one.
I'm sorry, Jürgen, I didn't.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to run into Peter here. Go ahead, Peter.
I was just saying, Marcel, the nice thing about Ecuador is if you don't like being in one hemisphere, you can walk into the other. So you can just step across the line and you've gone from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. So that way you can be eternally in the hemisphere that you desire.
Exactly. That is absolutely true.
And so when you travel from North America, from the US or Canada to Ecuador, the requirement is to have a test. Can you get the test anywhere? Like here in Hawaii, we have certain certified testing laboratories. We cannot just go. Our tourists could not just go to anyone. How's this in flying to Ecuador?
Okay, well, if you have what is required if you're flying, if you get it at home, you have the PCR test. Now, if you were to board the plane without a test and arrived in Ecuador without a test, what they're going to do is they're going to have you take a test at the airport, or you're going to have to take a test at your hotel, and you'll be locked in the hotel until your results come out, which is 24 hours.
Right. Okay.
So you can actually have your test taken at the hotel, because the lab will send somebody to your hotel to take the test. Now, labs that are official and that are certified are readily available throughout all cities of Ecuador. It's not a difficult thing. The price for the test is between $60 and $100, depending on the lab. The more expensive ones are labs that are perhaps located closer to the airport or closer to a commercial center. The smaller labs that are a little bit farther out, a few miles from the city, and you have to drive out to, are going to be a little bit cheaper. But it's just a matter of time and commodity. But in the end, the results are the same, and they're accepted by the government because it's the same procedure. It's not a difficult test in that sense. So they have enough tests. They have enough tests to test people. There's no lines. Actually, when I went back in September when they opened the Galapagos up completely again, I was one of the first travelers to go to try out, to get tested, to show the procedure, and I filmed it actually. I'll share later with you guys the video, and maybe you can share with everybody. But what I did is I went into the Galapagos, I got tested and everything. It was a 5-minute procedure to get tested. I didn't have to wait in line. The next day they sent me the results by email, and I went to the airport with that, and that was it.
Wow, that's a lot easier. I think we can learn from you guys. Yes, and please send it to us. We'd be happy to add this to the archive of this video.
I wonder if any of our listeners have any questions. Somebody?
It's quite. I like to. If no one, I would like to recognize. Maybe she's still there. I wanted to recognize Professor Dr. Snežana. She's from Serbia, and she heads our new education committee. Maybe to say hello. Professor Snežana, welcome, and thanks for staying up that late to join us here today.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. It is a nice evening here in Belgrade, not very cold, so we really enjoyed. And I can tell you that I have spoken to some people who saw that WTN has education in that program, and all of them are very happy because they say that we have to talk about education on a global level. This evening we heard a lot from our host, and I think that through his speech we can see that education of a destination is very important, because if you don't know the destination, you can't promote it in media, and you can't make a good tourist product. So I'm very happy to be tonight as well with you, because I think that it is very good. All these panels are excellent because we are together and we learn and hear much more about different destinations, about we recognize the people who are similar to us. And as I said before, all together we can rebuild the tourism and we can build our future.
Thank you so much for this. Thanks for joining us again.
Yes, yes. I told you can call me Snow White, because Snežana means Snow White, or Schneewittchen, or Blanka-Nieves, or Blanche-Neige. So if you can't remember Snežana, which is difficult, then you can call me Schneewittchen or Snow White.
Snow White is beautiful.
Yes, Snow White.
Perfect name for the Christmas season.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This is my season, winter time, and the Christmas and the New Year. That's my season.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I don't know, Cordell, did you wanted to say something? I heard you raising your hand.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Cordell from Bermuda. I just wanted to ask Marcel about the day cruise or the day tour, since a lot of people don't, when they hear that word cruise, they're very concerned about getting on there. So I was wondering about the day boat over. Are people able to be outside, or is it something that's fully contained? And also, how long is the journey from, I think it's from the coast to Galapagos Islands?
Yes. Well, thank you for the question. Well, the journey to the Galapagos Islands is it's a 2.5-hour flight from mainland Ecuador. So once you arrive in the Galapagos, once you're on the islands, you can take a cruise that goes around the islands, or stay at a hotel and take day trips to the different islands. But your trip is going to be a minimum of 4 days in the Galapagos. It would staying at a hotel and then doing day trips. Now the day trips usually are a short 1.5-hour navigation from the main island to one of the smaller islands, or to one of the locations at the national park. Then you have a guided walk that's about 2 hours walking on the trail outside in the outdoors, spotting birds, spotting bird nests, walking alongside giant tortoises in the highlands, in the rainforest there. Because actually Galapagos, although these are volcanic islands, in the highlands, you have tropical forests. They're actually the younger sisters or younger brothers of Hawaii in that sense. Hawaii is 96 million years old. Galapagos is 3 million years old. So they're still in formation, the islands themselves. And just to give an idea, but you actually get to walk on lava, you get to walk through rainforest, you walk on beaches, you get to snorkel, which would be swimming with sea lions, sea turtles. So you're actually out in the open completely at all times. And
so you're saying you can actually fly there, not on a. You don't have to take a cruise or boat there. You can actually fly there.
yeah, you don't take a cruise from mainland Ecuador to the Galapagos because it would be 2.5 days or 3 days of open seas only.
Okay.
So you actually fly in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
absolutely.
But can you take a cruise? Are there cruises? I'm just curious.
No.
No.
From mainland Ecuador, no.
No.
you
it's
have
not.
to fly.
So you got to
You have
fly.
to fly.
Okay.
Or take a canoe for many days.
No, that's wonderful. Are there any comments or questions from anyone for Marcel from the audience here?
Well, then I think we should probably say thank you to everyone.
Yeah, also I wanted to just do one more remark after talking to Snow White from Serbia. I wanted to encourage everyone in your region. We're looking for local chapters because our organization is built from the bottom up, not from the top down. So it's very important that we have functioning local chapters, and we have 11 we announced already, so we're growing. And we would welcome a local chapter in your region. You could lead. We would also share revenue for membership fees. It's not like we really want to build this up to connect local activities to a global organization. And I think that makes the local activities stronger and also makes us stronger as a global organization. So anyone who wanted to be a part of it and start this, please let me know, and we'd be happy to set this up for you. You get your own page on our website. You get access to more of these events, video events. They're important. They're also promotional. We all know we're in business. So we want you to generate business through World Tourism Network. We're not an anti-business, nonprofit charity. So I realize we need to relaunch this business, and that's really what we're all about. We also, besides chapters, we have interest groups. Like Snow White is running our interest groups in education. We have several others. We also have advocacy group. Right now, we're working on an initiative with Dr. Taleb Rifai, former Secretary General for UNWTO, to change the election process, what we think is flawed at UNWTO. So we have interests in some cases. Some of our members have, and we help to get the information out on such interests. So basically, that's what we're doing, and we're hoping all of you can have a part of it. Also, I wanted to say publicly, thank you for Stephen, who has been joining every single event. He's from New York, former American Airlines guy, I understand. Thank you for Stephen for being so loyal here.
My pleasure.
Stephen, you get the loyalty award.
Thank you.
And this was a fascinating session. It really wants me to visit Ecuador again and maybe a little bit more thoroughly. I've only been to Quito, so I can see there is a lot more than Quito in Ecuador, and it's in and you really, I think we can sense the passion you have when you explain this, and I definitely want to make sure next time I'm not just going to go to the Marriott.com website. I'm going to go to Latin Trail and book it. I think you can do a lot more to it. But I had a great time. Actually, when I went to Ecuador, I took a taxi, and the hotel organized it for me. And they took me around, and people are very friendly. They really want to help. But sometimes you feel a little bit lost with the taxi because, you probably don't have this expertise. And when you have a short time, you want to see as much as you can. And I'm sure Latin Trail can help this. What's your website? Is it latintrail.com or?
Yes, it's www.latintrails.com.
Okay, and latintrails.com. So we're going to, it's, yeah, and it's on your page because you're a member. If you just go to Ecuador, I don't think we have that many members in Ecuador, but you see Marcel with his page and you can easily connect. Well, from my end, that's it. We have more events coming up. So if you actually work, today's a very busy day. We have an event in about 32 minutes coming up with Frank Vismek. He's from Ontario, Canada, and he runs the Courtyard by Marriott Hotel. And his presentation is about Courtyard Redefined. And then later on, in a few hours, we have Vera Sharon Ohioma, I believe, from Nigeria, talking about the importance of personal branding as an authority in the new normal world of travel and tourism. And finally, tonight, we're going to Bulgaria also. And we're here from Elitsa Stoylova from Umni about chatbot as a crisis solution in the hospitality industry. And our last event tonight, and for some of you it may be in the morning, will be also very good. It's with our good friend Deepak Joshi. He was the former head of the CEO of the Nepal Tourism Board, and he's bringing a high-level panel from India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Bhutan, and also, of course, from Nepal together to talk about the state of the tourism industry in the Himalayas. That is coming up at 11 p.m. Hawaii time, what would make it 9 in the morning in London tomorrow. Unfortunately, 4 a.m. in New York and in Ecuador. I guess that might be a little bit too early, but you can always see everything online because we're going to archive this. And all our events are playing back to back between now and the end of December on eTopo News. So you may see live events. They're not exactly live, but they're repeats. But our archive is here. And I wanted to thank everyone for attending, whether you attended us live. That's what we prefer. So you can ask questions and answers, but also those that see us later or see us live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and on Vimeo, and of course on the eTopo News Network. Peter, I give you the last word.
Thank you.
So just one more thing, if you wanted to sign up for the events, just go to WTN.travel and click on the red link, WTN Lounge and Expo, or on the blue banner, and it will take you directly where you need to go. Peter, it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to wish everyone, this is December, so I want to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas. Let's hope that 2021 is a much better year than 2020. One of the things that we're learning about is that the end of the Spanish flu was on December 31st in 1918 or 19, if I'm not mistaken. Let's hope that the end of this pandemic is also goes away with the year 2020, that 2021 is a much healthier year for all of us. I want to thank everyone. Stephen Brown, if you make it to all the events tonight, my hat is off to you because that means you won't be sleeping.
That would be amazing.
And you're in New York time, but I want to thank everyone. Ecuador really is a fascinating country. Marcel and I have known each other a long time. And Marcel, I wish you all the best luck in the world and lots of success. So again, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, a good New Year's, and let's hope that 2021 is a much better year than 2020.
Peter, and I know I told you you have the last word, but you reminded me on something. Actually, our New Year's event we fixed yesterday. We're going to get it up. So I wanted to, since you kind of announced it already, will actually be the event that we're declaring 100 years after the Spanish flu, getting rid of COVID and starting over with the year 2021. And we have a number of interesting guests on this event, and we want everyone to participate. And our focus will be on tour guides all over the world. And we're inviting Marcia Donato of the world, I think it's the WFTGA, it's the World Federation of Tour Guides Associations. She will bring tour guides from all over the world to this event. So it's going to be really interesting. It's on December 30th, 10 a.m. here in Hawaii, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. in London. It's something you shouldn't miss. And this will be the conclusion, actually, of all our launch events as well.
And she's going to guide us into 2021.
Exactly.
Ecuador is one of the countries with the highest biological diversity in the world. While most people are familiar with the popular Galapagos Islands and maybe the capital Quito, they're missing out on La Sierra, which is the Andean region of the country. Along the avenue of the volcanoes, you are able to see Ecuador's most incredible landscapes. With this video, I introduce you to the best things to do in Ecuador along this avenue from north to south. Vámonos! The Otavalo Valley itself is worth a visit. The city of Otavalo is located approximately 1.5 hours north of Quito and is surrounded by 3 volcanoes. The reason for a visit is the fact that one of the largest indigenous markets for clothes in South America is taking place here every Saturday. Don't forget to bargain. The so-called Lake of the Guinea Pigs is situated in a former volcano crater, better known as a caldera, right at the foot of the volcano Cotacachi. The view from the edge of the crater is phenomenal. You can also go for a boat tour on the lake. If you got some more time, I recommend hiking the whole crater loop, which is about 20 kilometers. One of the musts in Ecuador for most travelers is the equator, which is also responsible for the name of the country. I myself took the chance and visited the Quetzalcoatl monument, which is a huge sundial near Cayambe, deriving from the Inca culture. The monument is located exactly on the equator, and you are able to spot the Cayambe volcano from there. The capital of Ecuador is also the highest official capital city in the world, with its old town being part of the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage. You should plan at least a few days to explore the numerous sites of Quito and its surroundings. My visit to the hot springs of Papayacta was the relaxing finish of my trip. The village is located around 60 kilometers east of Quito. The pools are filled with thermal water from the surrounding hot springs. The Reserva Ecológica Cayambe-Coca is one of the most beautiful national parks in the north of the region and perfect for hiking trips. You can easily add a stay at the hot springs as you actually drive past them on your way to this hike. Quilotoa is one of my favorite places to see in Ecuador. Similar to Cuicocha, it is a huge crater filled with water. On clear days, you can enjoy an extraordinary panorama. Besides the popular viewpoint at the village named Quilotoa, I recommend checking out the harder to access viewpoint Shalala, which is mostly unknown. A trip with the Tren Crucero is considered to be one of the most picturesque train rides in the world. In 3 days, the train runs from Quito down to Guayaquil and passes all possible climate zones and landscapes on its way down. I was lucky enough to ride the section between Riobamba through Alausi and the Devil's Nose to Bucay, and was blown away by the views. Close to the city of Cuenca, you can visit the most important Inca site in Ecuador. The whole complex is a bastion and a sanctuary at the same time, very similar to the structures you can find in Peru. The third largest city of Ecuador is also home to a very beautiful old town, which is part of the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage and definitely worth a visit. Besides the architecture, including the huge cathedral, I liked the relaxed atmosphere. Cuenca is also well known for its nightlife. Alright, if you want to find out more about the places mentioned, go and check out my related travel guide, where I also list how to get to those places and where to stay. If you've been to Ecuador yourself, tell us your favorite places to visit in the comment section below. Finally, don't forget to subscribe for new travel videos every Thursday. Thanks for watching. Hola! Let me introduce you to Chile, one of my favorite countries in South America. Argentina, which is the second largest country in Latin America. After traveling through Argentina for 4 months, I often get asked for the best places to visit.
All right. Wishing everyone, again, happy holidays. Take care and please stay well.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.